I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle with a very big show tonight, so let's get right to it. The day the happy talk died. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, for all these months, the Biden team, they basically waved off concerns about the economy, claiming that things would kind of even out, that this was kind of a transition to more sustainable growth.
We have a very strong economy. I know people are very upset, and rightly so, about inflation, but there's nothing to suggest that that a recession's in the works. I believe there is a path through this that entails a soft landing, with the economy essentially stabilizing.
Well, how's that soft landing feeling to you guys out there tonight? Now, how does that woman still have a job when so many Americans are now at a risk of losing their jobs? Well, we know why.
She became the first woman in the 232-year history of the U.S. Department of Treasury to hold that position.
Oh, come on. Being a first was always more important to Biden than someone actually being the best. And now we're all suffering for all the incompetence. Now, the Dow is 746 points lower than it was on Inauguration Day for Biden. So that means all the gains that we made under Trump were totally wiped out. And that's before you account for inflation. And by the way, things are about to get uglier. Walmart announced that it would only hire 40,000 retail staff for the holiday shopping period. Well, 40,000 sounds a lot, but until you realize that last year, Walmart hired 150,000 holiday workers. Well, Biden, with his team of incompetence, starring in the, Grinches Who Stole Christmas? It looks like it. But in the updated take on the old classic, instead of a growing heart, Biden just has a shrinking brain.
Russia shunned the non-proliferation ideals embraced by every other nation.
The fact is, there is no Biden brain trust. It's only brain rust. They somehow convinced themselves, I guess, that they could trust the Fed to fix everything that was going on in the economy, no matter how much they spent. That no matter how much money they borrowed, printed, and wasted, there would just never be any consequences for Americans. But Larry Summers, of course, the old Obama Treasury Secretary, he saw this train wreck coming back in the spring of 2021. Now, let's be clear. The former Treasury Secretary wasn't trying to undercut the Biden team. He was trying to save them. He's a loyal Democrat. But the left, the regime media, the dolts in the Biden administration, they didn't care. They just waved him off. They truly thought that they knew better, so they pursued reckless spending and grandiose plans to remake American capitalism. And now they're facing a November wipeout. And the American people are facing a long period of decline and despair tonight. Meanwhile, reality is coming for Biden's foreign policy as well. Now, here again, we've been fed months of happy talk. Remember when we were told that sanctions on Russian oil were going to rob Putin of all the funds he needed to wage this war?
We are enforcing the most significant package of economic sanctions in history, and it's causing significant damage to Russia's economy. It has caused Russian economy to, frankly, crater.
Of course, the opposite is true. Foolish energy policies in the West cause energy prices to spike, spending more money and sending more money, of course, into Putin's coffers. Now, Russia is getting a big assist at the same time from President Xi and John Kerry's friends at the CCP. While India is also keeping the Russian energy markets humming, meanwhile, Russia simply turns around and uses its Nord Stream pipeline as a leverage point.
The French are suggesting that there should be a turn down in heating so that they're capping the amount of heating that energy is being used over the next few weeks.
Other plans in France include delaying heat for public buildings this winter.
And now Europe is facing its own recession. And that's going to drag down the global economy into a very cold winter. And as for the actual progress of the war itself, the entire thing kind of is starting to remind me of Iraq. Lots of happy talk, no reality checks.
Ukraine is taking back territory from Russia. Is this a sign that the war is shifting? Do you think this is indeed a turning point in the war for Ukraine? I mean, if this isn't, what would be?
Jose, it's a very good sign.
I'm normally fairly guarded and cautious about this, but the tide clearly has turned.
Now, over and over, we're told the same message that we heard about Afghanistan. With just a little bit more money from the United States, in this case, Vladimir Putin will crack.
We're going to stay with them as long as they need our help.
You're already north of $15 billion in terms of those commitments. How far do you go?
As long as it takes.
Ironclad commitment.
Yes.
As long as it takes. That could be many years, because Putin just announced he's calling up 300,000 reservists to send to Ukraine. 300,000? Did our crack military leadership of Austin and Milley anticipate any of this? Even Tom Friedman, the elite's favorite global thinker, he's sounding the alarm, saying, how does this war end with a stable result? We still don't know. The EU is divided on how to deal with the war, especially where the populist backlashes emerge when people get totally stressed this winter. Some European leaders will begin to ask, is there a way out through negotiations? Well, it's a little bit late, don't you think, for the establishment to now tell us that the whole Ukraine saga may not have a happy ending? Remember, the Angle was warning you in March about the risks of a Biden proxy war. Because history shows that the longer a war lasts, the more costly it is. U.S. policymakers have to be very careful to make sure we do not end up in a worse position when this is all over. But the American people must be told that the risks of escalating things with Russia are not negligible. It may, in fact, draw us even closer to a direct confrontation with Russia, which, as we all know, is a nuclear power. And today, we inch closer to the nuclear cliff.
And those who try to blackmail us with nuclear weapons should know that the prevailing winds can also blow in their direction. If the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, we will without doubt use all available means to protect Russia and our people. This is not a bluff.
Now, amazingly, Secretary Austin and General Mark Milley, the same two who oversaw the debacle of our withdrawal from Afghanistan, are still in Biden's cabinet. But incompetence gets people killed here, and the Pentagon is still putting American lives at risk. This time, not just dozens outside of an airport, but perhaps millions here at home. Now, we all want the best for the Ukrainian people. They've suffered greatly. It's a terrible tragedy. But you can't run U.S. foreign policy on emotion alone. And by the way, one poll more than any other, looking toward the midterms, may be the bellwether for the prospects of the Democrats. 64% of the country now say that we're headed in the wrong direction. And this is a good time to remember what Biden promised on the campaign trail.
I said I'm running for three reasons. One, to restore the soul of America, the decency and honor of this country. Two, to rebuild the backbone of the country. The backbone of the country are the working women and men, the middle class. The third reason I ran was to unify the country, to unify it.
Well, the country's getting unified, all right, really united. We're getting united behind the idea that Biden and the Democrats are dragging us down a rat hole. No amount of happy talk by them, by their press pals, are going to change those facts. Now, the voters may not agree with Republicans on everything, we know that, but they hate what the Democrats are doing to America. And that's the angle. Joining me now, delighted he's with us, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, distinguished fellow at the Hudson Institute and Fox News contributor. Mr. Secretary, I think more than anything else here that is disturbing is this lack of accountability, which really offends me most given what's at stake.
It's pretty remarkable, Laura. You hear President Biden talk about we're back, that America's back. It does feels like 1976, 1979, right? People are now being told to turn down their thermostat. We're being told that we're not going to have enough energy. We're now being told that to solve the economic problems, we're going to have to lay off hundreds of thousands of Americans, get unemployment up to 5 or 6% to solve this problem. And every family in America can feel that. And when it comes to our national security, we lost the bubble. We lost the deterrence that we had for 4 years. were the bad guys. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, the Taliban, they understood that they couldn't